Hello, and welcome to a very special edition of the Wayfinders Guild live stream. We are, or rather, I am, broadcasting across all of our pages on YouTube, on Facebook, and on Twitch. What I decided would be fun today is do a little AMA session where if you have any questions about the show or any D&D questions, feel free to ask. Let's see. I'm going to be checking the chat every now and then. I am just Christine. How do you keep track of the different voices you do for different NPCs? I have had wow. Yeah, like 21 years experience doing improv. And one of the things that I find is easiest to do, especially with a D&D game, is remember what region the characters are from. So with the World of Draconia, in Karina on the continent, instead of having like the different races have different accents, I decided that it was going to be regional based because I feel like everybody does like the same type of orc voice or halfling voice, and keeping it regional allows me to be consistent with it. So that's how I try to keep it in mind. And a lot of the times I will have a list of NPCs that I've created that I know are going to show up again in the show. I keep track of ones that I kind of just make up on the fly. I'll watch the footage back, take notes on them, so this way in case they ask my players ask about them, I'll have it ready about what I said, and so that there is consistency with that. But thank you for that. Yeah, NPCs are a lot of fun to create. I sometimes will use a generator online that will just pop up, give me a name, where they're from, what they do, and then I can save that and have it ready for any time that they are going to interact with them again. But there are the typical archetypes, the tavern owner or the blacksmith or shopkeep, stuff like that, where you kind of understand what their whole goal and motivation is in terms of selling. But you can throw in a little flavor in there too, if you want to have a particular one that you want people to really stand out. I have to take these off because I am hearing my own voice and it is throwing me off. But they are good headphones. I forgot what they're called. These are... I don't see a label on them. But they're Bluetooth headphones that I got at a... I think I got them at a CVS. Cheap. So yeah, how did the players react to the Chapter 1 epilogue after the stream went off the air? That was a lot of fun. So with the epilogue, they did not know that was going to happen, and then they were asking me, who was that? What was that about? And I kept telling them, you will have to eventually find out as clues, will become more apparent. And they will. After the last session that we recorded recently, there are other things that are developing in this story that are a bit surprising. And I don't want to give too much away, but yeah, it's going to be fun. How many sessions do we record at once? So far, we do basically a kind of like, I try to limit it to 3.5 hours of one session on a Sunday evening, because it's the time that we can all get together. And beforehand, I will write out at least 3 like story beats of chapters that I know that I want them to, or rather, things that are going to most likely happen um, within that story. And that'll be either an NPC that they're going to meet of importance, an encounter that is absolutely going to happen. I obviously don't write the results of what, because anything can happen with it, but I like to, at least know that there's stuff that will happen for the story. And if it doesn't happen, I kind of have to use all that improv skill to adapt. And it just, my players are going to keep me on my toes. And they are fantastic. Some of the decisions, that come up are just really fun, especially with the relationship building. How on rails is the story progression intended to be? What if the players throw you a massive curveball? Yeah, like I said, you kind of have to be ready for that, especially as a DM or game master, whatever term you prefer. I thrive off of that, because for me, it's just writing the hook for what possibly could happen, or what is the most likely thing to happen in order for them to progress in the story. And then finding out what, they'd like to do and what their intent is, that can help lead me, or rather help me guide them to an important part of what this narrative is going to be. I don't try to, railroad it in regards to like, no, you have to do this. I give a lot of options that are more than likely going to lead to the same point. And sometimes, you got to make it a little more obvious. And to make it obvious, it's usually, in what my style is to kind of have like a singular event that is going to appeal to them, that they most likely all want to either interact with or attend. Something that is noticeable in the environment that they're in, that will draw them to that part of the story. And I thought that being a dungeon master probably was one of the most intimidating ideas for quite some time. I kind of just decided at one point, I'm just going to do it. And I started a game with Jessica, who plays Arlen. We had met through an online community, and I decided to set the game in Eberron, which is my favorite world in all of Dungeons and Dragons. And a lot of that world has influenced the aesthetic and the like arcane technology. There actually is a term for it called etherpunk, which is AETHER, where magic is technology, and I just find that fascinating. Do you get a sense yet if your players are more likely going to be storytelling driven or more combat driven? Luckily, I have very balanced players. They know what they want to do when they're in combat, and they also all have goals in mind for their characters. When before we did a session 0, what I did was I gave them like a questionnaire to basically ask, simple things like, what is your goal at this point in your life? Um, what's your stance on the laws that regulate magic in the Sylvan Empire, and how spellcasters are treated in the theocracy of the Westland territories. And then even stuff like, what's your favorite food? Do you have hobbies? And uh, if you have a goal, uh, when this story starts, what is the thing that you are looking to accomplish the most when we first meet you? And with that, I'm able to understand their motivation and their intent with the actions that they take within that story. Session zeros are very important, in my opinion, and also they can set the foundation of the relationship between the characters before they even start playing together. We had a very interesting session zero. Hopefully, as the story goes on, you will find out exactly why these characters were familiar with each other, what it was that they were questioning that bonded them. Some already knew each other growing up, which I am always a fan of, because it's always can be awkward and just drawn out when it's like, who are you? What are you doing? Hey, maybe we should work together. And having characters that know each other just kind of takes that out of the story and also saves a lot of time. So eventually, when the elements of what happened in session zero pop up, you'll be able to get more of an understanding of the origins of these relationships between all of our wonderful characters. As far as the world goes, well, we see Claude again. You never know. The fate of that particular bard, I guess, is in question. When you will find out in this next episode. There's been a little bit of unforeseen circumstances that happened today, where it may I most likely the episode will not air tonight, but it will become available immediately on demand tomorrow, so that it can just be seen. Nothing super serious, just some stuff that family things, that some small family emergencies, and everything's okay. But with this next episode that comes out, you're going to be seeing for the first time what they all are like as combatants. Glad to hear everything's okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah, things can get a little stressful when real life comes into play. So as you can see, I made this little multiverse cosmic background with Photoshop, and it's this behind me. I'm using an Elgato green screen. And actually, I'm just getting a little bit of a update. Okay. Yeah. Still, everything's okay. Let me just give a quick reply back. I'll be right back. right, so we're back. Um, yeah, a little history about my D&D experience. I learned from a good friend on, I believe, the 3.5 system. My first character was a paladin called Bob A. Ganoush. I had really no experience, and it was a lot of fun. Um, we had to stop playing because I ended up getting a job in Florida for with a theater. And then when I came back a couple of years later, I hooked up with my old college buddies who were starting basically a pickup game where whomever wanted to join could just we created a character. We all would mutually level up together. No matter when you came in, or it was just when you were available, you would come in to play the game. Um, and my first character there was a ranger, who I basically kind of made like Batman, and multi-classed him to be a to have a barbarian ranger, so that I could rage and fire arrows. uh, what else? And then that character died, and I made I made a sorcerer, and then I was kind of ended up scheduling came on and off, but I discovered other games like Shadowrun and what else? Like Vampire the Masquerade, which I have yet to play, but really want to play with a group of people if I'm ever able to find one. It just intrigues me so much. And then when the pandemic started, I was producing a lot of live comedy shows in New Jersey and New York, and I was ready to put one up in March of 2020, which is when everything closed. So I had to fill up the time, and all of my friends were, big Critical Role fans. I decided to binge both campaigns up until when they stopped in the second one, and I was kind of learning how to play. I also caught up on Dimension 20, LA by Night, which is an amazing show. And I was finding, a lot of different series and learning how to play more and learning how to even be a dungeon master. And last year, 2 years ago actually, oh, last year and by September, I had been at that point DMing for 1 year consistently with a weekly game, which is kind of unheard of with friends. I mean, for the most part, we had been playing almost every week. And we're still playing it. I think we're getting close though to the end of that campaign. But man, it was just that in itself was just like an immersion experience of learning through doing. And I had never homebrewed a world before, but I have plenty of ideas. And for this particular one, it all came from, and this is a technique that I've used in improv, from a what if question. And for the what if question for me was, what if magic was regulated? Like, what if by law there were certain things about magic that were under control? And then once I got that answer, I was like, okay, well, if this is true, what else is true? How does that affect religions? How does that affect an empire? Are there like renegade spellcasters? And then all this stuff kind of started to build. And when I pitched it to my players, they were like, oh, I have an idea of how they would live in this world. And that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted a collaboration for the world that we were building, because then instead of just being like, no, this is what happens in this world, these are the rules, it was like, if this is how you're going to live in the world, then that's canonical. I want that to be how, like, what people expect life to be like in this world. And it just grew and grew, and eventually we had like a really cool fleshed out world, and it's still growing. Why does all the sound editing and stuff like that, or who does all the sound editing and stuff like that? How long does that take to edit to be able to put a new episode online every week? That's me. I do all the editing. What we do is we record our game on Zoom, and then what I do is, even if initial views of some players were more hardcore, that's Mark, one of our players. He plays Finn. As far as the process, I record the game on Zoom. I do it locally so I can have individual sound channels, and then I crop each image and I put it into Streamlabs, and I record that, grid that you see on Streamlabs, and then I add the sound from Zoom into the game. So this way I can mix it differently. And so far it's been working. We've been figuring out like different level checks, and as with each section goes on, one of the things I wanted to make sure was that visually, typically a show that you'll see is just the grid and maybe some music. I decided, let me put in some cutaway visuals to kind of give people a little bit more immersive experience of what this world looks like. Let the ambiance and the sound effects immerse people more. And when we get into the combat, when you see the encounter, there was a little bit of a taste of that with the How the Lich Stole Christmas special, with the encounters there, where I threw some special effects in for the actual attacks. And that will be the case with a little bit more extra. So what we use for our game when we do the tabletop is a Chrome extension called Above VTT. Now what that does is it turns your campaign page on D&D Beyond, and you can activate it to turn it into a virtual tabletop. So this way, all the stats are there. You can see the combat tracker. You can create the area of effect of a spell. You can do like a whisper message to the other players. You can instantly check on everyone's character sheet. All of the actually on the D&D Beyond website, you can use their encounter creator, and it will instantly translate or put those into the log, so that the characters are, all like, it's kind of seamless, and it's really cool. So with that, I use OBS to capture just that screen, so this way I can cut to scenes of the combat, instead of and maybe just like also have it in the corner of the screen when just for people to see what like the arrangement looks like. So you'll be able to see what that looks like in our next episode. But it keeps me busy. But this is the thing, I've been doing video editing professionally since about 2010. And it's what I love to do. I love to kind of bring a little bit extra to something that could, I could easily just have put up a Zoom call with an overlay and, have it be theater of the mind, but who wants that when, you can see the battle? And the other thing is, the show is only an hour long. It's not like, you have to invest in a 3-hour session to really get the feel of it. Of all the D&D content you'd listen to, watched online, do I have a favorite DM? Brennan Lee Mulligan. I think Brennan Lee Mulligan is one of the most creative DMs ever. Not only is he incredibly hilarious, and I have seen his stuff at the UCB Theater in New York back when he still was performing there, but Dimension 20 is absolutely a big influence on the visuals of like cutting back and forth to the scenery, and the use of the players in that sense. And I just love his storytelling. I love his mixture of being able to go from like silly comedy that's unexpected to really like touching dramatic storytelling. And again, that all comes from the improv experience. But yeah, God, if I ever got to, meet him or have him like guest, God, that would blow my mind. Yeah, I mean, if I had to make like an all-star team of, the professional players, it would be Brennan, Abria Iyengar, Liam O'Brien, who else? Erika Ishii, and oh god, I can't remember his name. He was on LA by Night. He was like one of the main characters. B. Walter Davis, I think that's his, or B. Davis Walter, I think that's his name. And probably if I need a sixth. Oh, that's a tough one. Probably Taliesin Jaffe. I feel like that is just a fun. Oh, Joe Manganiello. Like, absolutely, because that guy lives and breathes D&D. And I mean, he has made a character that has become canonical in the Wizards of the Coast world, which that's a major accomplishment. I mean, he has an entire room that he calls the Gygax lair, as like a tribute to Gary Gygax. It's amazing to me. God, I would just love to sit in on a session for that. One of the things that I have liked recently is getting in touch with, or rather, kind of building relationships with the TikTok community in D&D. And I started this little NPC outreach program where people who have like original characters that they like to cosplay and tell stories with, you see a lot of like tavern owners or Feywild creatures or just adventurers. I was like, do you want to either make this character part of our world, or would you like to invent one that is an official, citizen of it? And the trade-off would be, whenever they show up in an episode, of course they'd be tagged in the episode description, and showcased with whatever, if they have projects that they do or art or anything like that. And then I kind of limited to it because I had a good amount. I did a cap on that. And when we launched the Patreon, it became now our $15 tier. And when a little bit more people come, sign up for that, there will be a form for people to fill out. And then we will, as we're building a website right now, we will have a special kind of like, oh, I just got a the Lord of the Rings of Power teaser is here. I need to see that show. And when we build the website, there will be a section that is our special like NPC spotlight of the character and then the person behind the character. You know, even though I am going to be portraying them, I want to make sure that I'm doing justice for what they want to see and how they envision the character. And of course, making little Hero Forge minifigures out of them so they can show up on the screen. And you never know. They could be, you know, I don't mind if they want to be, you know, a villain. If they don't mind getting defeated, or if they don't mind getting incapacitated in some way. Speaking of combat, I tend to, you know, unless the stakes are very, very high, when a creature, or especially a humanoid, is defeated, I will say that they have become unconscious, unless that the attack is so strong that there is no other way for them to go out but be obliterated. Usually I just say that they fall unconscious, much like any of our players would. And then if there is an opportunity in the initiative, I will roll death saves for the NPCs. And again, it all depends on the stakes of the encounter. If it's a low level, you know, low level encounter with, you know, just like some robbers or a couple of like, you know, thugs or anything like that, then yeah, I'm not going to make my players just, as the term goes, murder hobos. I'm gonna just have them be defending themselves with their abilities. As their levels go up, and as they you know, have these abilities become more available, then the stakes will become higher with these encounters. That's just a philosophy I have, and it's something I learned over the year that I was DMing, or still DMing, my Eberron game. And I think that it's gonna, I think that it works for the most part. You know, it's easy to say like, oh, like, yeah, they're dead. But think about this: if you're in like a city or somewhere where there is an authority presence, and they find you, and they find just dead bodies around, it's not just going to be like a, hey, thanks, folks. Thank you, super powered individuals. They're going to be like, what the hell happened here? And who are you that just decided to show up and kill people? You know, there are consequences to people's actions. And that's where I also like to, you know, discover with intent. We have a house rule on our show where if you roll a natural 1, it is an automatic failure. And if you roll a natural 20, it is an automatic success. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that what you do, like, it's all about intent. If your intent is to do something and you get the natural 20, then yes, that will happen, but there are always consequences behind that happen after it, whether you fail or succeed. I think that, you know, it should benefit a lot of storytellers and a lot of DMs or game masters. Again, those are interchangeable terms for me. Intent is huge, and consequences of those intents really help make a narrative flow. it kind of goes again with the rules of improv. What do you mean actions have consequences? You know exactly what I mean, Mark. we raised in Catholic school. We know that there are consequences because we have been made guilty to feel guilt about those actions that we take consequences for. So yeah, to talk about the world itself, I'm a big fan of Latin, and I wanted to kind of use that as the ancient language, the analogous language of dragons. So Draconia is translated to world forged by dragons. And what the belief is that this world was created by Bahamut and Tiamat. And what Draconia is known to be, here, I'll read a little bit of my description. Draconia is a world which, in the ancient language, means forged by dragons, believed to have its place in the multiverse, which is actually a canonical belief in our world that everyone kind of accepts that there are worlds beyond this one, but they inhabit this particular one, which means that they believe in deities that they're over centuries of time and through divine communication and intervention, gods become discovered. So what this particular world is, or what the purpose of this world was, to create a world where testing of the balance of life and death, known as the dyad. Bahamut is the dragon deity revered in Terra, which is the world above of the living, while Tiamat is understood to be the overseer of Umbra, which is the world below of the dead. Now, they are overlapping dimensions, so they kind of they mirror each other. If you don't go to hell, although the 9 hells do exist, but the Umbra is kind of like, that is where the dead go first. It's kind of like a purgatory of sorts, but it is the source of necromantic power. It is where it's inhabited by souls, and it is inhabited by infernal creatures, whereas Terra is the living magic, and also a place where the Feywild is accessible, like the Celestials are the main kind of overseers, or believed to be overseers of that. So the major continent, Corina, is home to the theocratically run Westland territories and the high elf reigning Sylvan Empire. Aesthetically, the world is a neo-Victorian kind of, again, etherpunk fantasy hybrid setting. Currently, at this point in time in the world, professional adventuring is not nearly as high profile as it was like way back. To people, if you go out and say like, yes, I am an adventurer, they're gonna look at you like, that's still a thing? Like, if someone said to their family, I want to grow up to be an adventurer, they'd be like, okay, but make sure you have a fallback trade. Your uncle's a smith. He can help you out. So it's kind of like, almost like I equate it to my own experience being a theater major and trying to get in professionally into acting, where a lot of the times you would hear, okay, that's great, but what will you do for work? So with professional adventuring, it's kind of like Okay, there is the military. There are the equivalent of law enforcement that take care of, yeah, fine arts majors basically. Um, there are government problems, problems that can be settled by government or lawbringers, but when they become more supernatural or more arcane, that is where an adventurer would come into play. And that is kind of like you reach out to them and to solve these problems. Like you wouldn't go to the fire brigade to stop a dragon that is torturing an entire village. So the Wayfinders Guild is was at one point, the hub for, if you wanted to be a professional adventurer, you wanted to become a chapter member of this guild. And for a while, with this kind of like downfall of not like professional adventuring not really being as popular as it was, the guild kind of shut its doors and almost became kind of like a museum of sorts. And the senior members, who are called envoys, just kind of became like these, almost like pitiful celebrities that were past their prime, or they would go out and do speaking events, or if they had like adventuring conventions, which is kind of something we do in a future episode. They'd be like on panel discussions, and or they're writing books about their adventurers and their past experiences. But for the most part, it's just kind of like, okay, that's great, but it's not really a thing anymore. So for the first time in like 30 years, I think that's what I had said on the show, the guild is reopening its doors and is accepting new chapters, which are, what they call their adventuring parties. So this is a big thing. Now the thing is, nobody has really questioned why they're opening their doors again. It's just kind of like a shock for the most part, and people who have always wanted to be adventurers are kind of jumping at the chance to prove themselves to these senior members, these envoys. But as the show goes on, we will discover why it is that all of a sudden they decided to open the doors again and accept new members. So yeah, that is kind of where we are in the history of this world. And so far with the first two episodes, and if you haven't, folks out there who haven't seen the first two episodes, please do watch them. It's not so much a spoiler, but it's a common thread that our main characters discover, for the most part, that they know each other. For those who have never met, they all realize that at some point, the spoilers, they needed the dues money. No, it's not a union. They discover that they all had a shared nightmare where they were the most powerful they've ever been, and they were fighting Tiamat in this cataclysmic event. And then eventually they just, after the nightmare ended, it was this, kind of like, did they die? Was this a vision? Is this just some sort of strange collective conscious moment? And they haven't talked about it yet. So it'll be interesting when that conversation happens, and when they decide, to kind of ask each other, what the hell is going on? I've particularly liked waiting to play the NPCs that have popped up on our Instagram feed. There are religious leaders, the Empress, a few envoys of the guild itself, and there's a few that I have, kind of tucked away in my back pocket, not literally, that are going to be fun to find out where this story is going to go. And I believe that with, again, I'm not spoiling anything, but the mystery is going to reveal itself a bit more, especially with episodes 4, 5, and 6. Some big surprises. They're going to be coming your way. I had a lot of internal debate over things I wanted to take from the popular D&D source materials, because originally this was going to be kind of like a multiverse hopping team where they would go to the Sword Coast, or they would go to Eberron, or they would end up in Ravenloft. But something else popped in my head where I was like, I think I can do something with this. And a little bit of that was teased with the first epilogue, and in this next episode there will be another epilogue that kind of continues the mystery of what is going on, which then kind of leads into the next 3 episodes. So I'm having so much fun with this show. It is probably the most dedicated I have been to a project since my live comedy shows that I used to do. And I always put as much effort as I could into making it something unique and special and worthwhile watching. I know that people have certain expectations when it comes to seeing a D&D real play stream, and I kind of want to surprise people. I want to give them an experience that is immersive, and also just tell a really good story. And I am very, very thankful to have such great players who are all from different backgrounds, whether it's they've been playing for so long. Mark, he and I went to high school together, and this is a reunion for us. And it's like we never we just picked up exactly where we left off. Obviously, we're in different places in our life, being both being fathers, and it's been really cool. Some people I had never met before, but we just clicked immediately, and I think it shows in the performances of everybody when they're in character, and even those moments we have out of character where we're just making each other laugh. There are plans for additional content. I just put out on our Instagram that there is going to be a kind of mini-series called The World of Draconia, where basically what I had talked about here is going to be a more clean narrative of what this world is like, what the important figures, the governments that are in there, just to kind of give a way to have people learn the lore without having to ask questions about it as the show goes on. And they don't necessarily have to watch it. I think that it can be just this additional resource that if you have questions of Well, they were talking about a certain thing in this episode. I wonder if like maybe this will explain it. And yeah, I'm that's what I'm just kind of trying to do. And yeah, it's fun additional content. It won't be like half-hour episodes. Just be several minutes at a time of different things. With our Patreon, which we just launched, we do have several tiers of just generic support. Everybody gets a shout out, of course. Our higher tiers, you're allowed, you get access to our Discord, and eventually we are looking into some cool merchandise. One in particular is a player's notebook with our logo on it, and custom character sheets that we're getting from a great artist. We are looking into dice trays. We also are affiliate. We are in several affiliate programs with minifigure creators and podcast content creators. Stream Spell, which is where we get a lot of our graphics from. A lot of the stuff, though, I do custom design, and I take a lot from the Stream Spell elements and then integrate them into our layout, which I think is really fun. Yeah, I've just been having so much fun, and I've been getting close to about an hour talking about the show. Mostly because I wanted something for people to kind of have to watch, because due to some unforeseen circumstances, the regular airing of the show will not be tonight, but instead tomorrow night. So we hope to see you there. Thank you everybody for enjoying, if you're for engaging with the questions, and thank you for watching. I appreciate it, and thank you for asking questions as well. Have a great day, everybody, and be sure to catch our new episode tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we will see you then.